I call this meeting to order. This meeting has been called in compliance with our budget approval process requirement. At this point, City Clerk Howell will read the tentative millage resolution and the tentative budget resolution into the record by the title only, okay? Then I will turn the discussion over to Finance Director Burrows for further information. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Resolution number 2025-027R, a resolution of the City of Clermont, Lake County, Florida, adopting the tentative levying of ad valorem taxes for fiscal year 2025-2026, providing for collection of taxes, providing for an effective date. Resolution number 2025-028R, a resolution of the City of Clermont, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for the fiscal year 2025-2026, providing for an effective date.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, before we get started, Mr. Mayor, can we have a prayer and a pledge?
Sure. You want to pray?
Sure.
Go.
Do I sit or stand?
Whichever you want.
Dear Lord, please allow those of us who are making decisions and those who are in the audience and watching online to channel all the wisdom and justice and grace and courage that you can give us tonight. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members.
Thank you.
Resolution number 2025-027R provides for the adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 tentative ad valorem millage rate. The rate proposed in the resolution is 4.5900 mils, which is the maximum amount that was noticed to all property tax owners in the City of Clermont based on passage by the City Council on July 29, 2025. This rate is lower than the rollback millage rate of 4.6185. The public must be allowed time for public comments prior to the adoption of the millage rate, and prior to the conclusion of the tentative millage hearing, the council must adopt a tentative millage rate. The rate may be lowered by the City Council, but it cannot be increased. Passage at the rate of 4.5900 mils requires a majority vote. Fiscal year 25-26, the final millage rate will be adopted on September 15th, 2025. And that concludes staff report.
Okay. Did you want to do the budget as well?
The state's current process requires they be done independent of one another.
Okay.
So the millage does have to be addressed first.
Okay. Okay.
They could hear me. They couldn't hear me.
But I get.
Could you say it
Scott, I
again?
guess you have to do that all over again.
Because they couldn't hear you.
I did not realize that wasn't on. So you all heard none of that presentation?
I'll be glad to repeat it because there was a misstatement in there, as Mr. Pride just said to me. So I'll be glad to repeat it. Resolution number 2025-027R provides for the adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 tentative ad valorem millage rate. The rate proposed as the resolution is 4.5900 mils, which is the maximum amount that was noticed to all property owners in the City of Clermont based on passage by the City Council on July 29, 2025. This rate is below the rollback rate of 4.6185. The public must be allowed time for public comments prior to the adoption of the millage rate. Prior to the conclusion of the tentative hearing, the council must adopt the tentative millage rate. The rate may be lowered by the City Council, but it may not be increased. Passage at the rate of 4.5900 requires a majority vote. The fiscal year 2025-26 final millage rate will be adopted on September 18th, 2025. And that concludes staff's report.
Okay, before I ever open up to the public, you say passage of 4.59 must have a majority vote?
Correct.
Okay, anything other than that, what's the vote count?
Majority for any rate at this point since you cannot go up.
So any vote we have, five for anything, it has to have a majority vote.
Correct.
If you don't get that,
I think we'll be here for a while.
huh?
I think it means we'll be here for a while.
Okay, all right, thank you. And we cannot read both of them at one time. We have to handle each one of the budget and everything separate. Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to address this item may come to the microphone and state your name and address and have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Brian Bain, 245 Nautica Mile Drive. I said this last year and I'll repeat it again. I don't know anyone who says, I love paying taxes. But I've met people while campaigning who say, I love our parks. Our police and fire are the best and keep us safe. Thank God the water department showed up late Friday night to fix that leak. And here's some additional things they might say. I'm glad I can just turn on the faucet and clean water comes out. My garbage always gets picked up. I don't know what happens after I flush the toilet, but I'm glad it's gone. It was once said, every line in the government's budget has its own constituency. I believe budgets are a reflection of priorities. You should be able to look at a city's budget and see what's most important in that community, the direction it's headed, and the fiscal responsibility and soundness of their budgetary practices. Healthy budgetary metrics include things like strong reserves, little to no structural deficit, limited use of or no use of one-time money, reasonable and rational assessments, and fair and just compensation and benefits packages. I support the 4.59 millage rate and slight tax decrease resulting from it. But we have to be mindful that whatever rate is approved this year is essentially a starting point for next, meaning the rollback rate a year from now will be less than today. And we're assuming growth projections will remain strong. But growth and economic projections are not guaranteed. Cutting too much, too fast will damage our city and its progress, not to mention make it less safe, less healthy, and less attractive for people and businesses to invest in. Healthy cities must invest in themselves and their community. If we don't, neither will our current and future residents and business owners, and our home and property values will suffer. Strong and vibrant arts, parks, and rec complement a safe and prosperous city. So does clean water, good roads, and top-notch employees, represented and non. Here's the thing. We can and should have the greatest police and fire departments and the most outstanding city staff and employees, and gosh darn it, the best darn infrastructure too. However, if all our roads do is lead people out of town, instead of in and around it, because there's nothing to see or do, and no high-paying jobs, and fewer opportunities to enhance our quality of life, we will no longer be able to afford the greatest and the best. And that is unacceptable to me. I ask the council to adopt the reduced millage rate of 4.59 and continue investing in our city, our residents, our businesses, and our dedicated and hardworking city employees. They deserve it. Our city deserves it. Because we all win when Clermont wins. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Anyone else in the public wish to address this item may come to the microphone and state your name and address and have 3 minutes. Seeing no one else, I close public comment. Bring it back to council.
Motion.
I move to adopt a millage of 4.4 for fiscal year 2026.
I second.
You have a motion and a second for adoption of millage rate of 4.4. Is there any further discussion?
Thought we were going for 459. I haven't seen a 4.4, and I'm not going to support a 4.4. I've seen 4.59 as our budget, and I'm not prepared to move off of that. If there is further budget discussions where we can see exactly what's going to happen, then we can have that discussion. But certainly not going to go for something lower when I don't have that in front of me.
I echo what you said, Todd.
So do you keep your second?
I'm still gonna keep it because I wanted just to have discussion.
Okay.
You know.
Can we discuss the budget items that I see as opportunities?
No, ma'am.
Well, we can vote on the millage and discuss the budget as a
Well,
separate
we
motion.
would take up those items when we get to the budget. That's next on the agenda. Okay, I think he just told me we couldn't do them. We had to do them separately and to act upon this first. That's what I was just told, right?
And that was a motion. We have to treat them separately, but we can discuss whatever is relevant to, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If we add grant income, which is currently very limited, and we have in the budget a grant writer, if we don't fund the capital reserves right now, because we're still maintaining 25% in reserves, I've been working with Mr. Borer on the healthcare, and we can reduce our healthcare estimate from 8.8 to 7.4 million, and that keeps us well above the highest cost per healthcare, not only in the state of Florida, but also includes a 10% increase year over year for what our current healthcare is for this year. So it's a real number, not a cut number. And I think we need to instruct our city manager to pursue revenues from the county in the form of the MSTU and what they're collecting for our EMS, because the real issue with our current budget going over is EMS. And I think we can get that from the county. That's why I like 4.4.
All right, as I say, this isn't right now about the budget, it's about the millage. And I do have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt a 4.4 millage rate. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
And chair vote nay as well. Motion fails 3-2. Is there another motion?
Motion to approve resolution number 2025-27R at the millage rate of 4.59.
You said 4.59? Okay.
4.59.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for approval of resolution number 2025-027R at the rate of 4.59. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
And the chair vote aye as well. Motion
4-1.
passes, however, does not pass it 4-1. And it has to have a majority.
It only has to have 3-2.
Yeah, everyone needs a majority.
4-1.
4-1.
4-1.
Oh, it did
Yeah,
pass
It
4-1.
passed.
It has 4-1.
I didn't hear Bill. Yeah, that's fine.
Huh?
Yeah, it passed. The majority is 3-2, but we have 4-1, so it passed.
Okay. 4-1.
Ready for the next item, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, Scott Board, Finance Director. Tracy, does this need to be read prior? Oh, you read them both. Thank you.
Yeah. That's why I was wondering why we couldn't do them. Go ahead, since you read both of them at the same time. So go ahead.
Thank you. Next item, resolution number 2025-028R. Resolution 2025-028R provides for the adoption of the fiscal year 2025-2026 tentative budget. The public must be allowed time for public comments prior to the adoption of the tentative budget. Prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, the council must adopt a tentative budget. The final budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 will be adopted on September 18th, 2025, and that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to address this item may come to the microphone and state your name and address and have 3 minutes. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to address this item concerning the budget may come to the microphone and state your name and address and have 3 minutes. Seeing no one, I close public comment, bring it back to council. What say council?
So, Elton, I don't disagree with where we're going on this. You and I think, both agree that 4.2 is where we'd like to be. My issue with what you had said in the previous is that there are ifs. And we're trying to adopt a budget that I've seen and that is concrete. And I have a very difficult time saying that I'm going to budget an if. So I'm going to support the budget as it is. I am hopeful that we get to the 4.2, but I don't believe that's all going to happen. And I believe it's probably an overstep to do it this year without having those concrete agreements in place, because I want to be able to make sure that once that agreement's in place, especially with the county, that it's rock solid and that we have the ability to hold their feet to the fire in case they do something, because I mean, let's be honest, they've been a little squirrely lately. So I don't want to put our budget based on some maybes and some others. I also believe that with the insurance, we need to sit down and do a deep dive on that. And that is one that should start now. And it will take 6 months to go through all of those pieces and parts and figure out where, because with that, we'll know where every last dollar is spent because we're self-funded. So we'll be able to tell, are we losing money on medications? A lot of the diabetic weight loss medications are $1,000 a month. I did have conversations with school board. That is a huge part of their ongoing costs is that piece of it. So we need to know where our increase in costs are coming from and figure out how do we deal with those. And so for me, it's a much, much bigger conversation that I'm not going to budget on that although I hope it comes to fruition. That's where I'm at.
Well, I met with Mr. Borer about the insurance because I do think the insurance is critical. Actual numbers year to date, as of today, we have spent $5.683 million on insurance. There's about 2 more payrolls, and each payroll runs just shy of $250,000. So $500,000 more for fiscal year 2025 puts us at $6.2 million for fiscal year 2025. We're adding 30 more employees next year, which is about an 8% increase off the employees that we currently have. That's assuming they all take insurance. If you add that plus a 10% increase, which is a pretty extraordinary increase for a very large chunk of our budget, and that puts us at $7.37 million. The current budget that that corresponds with this millage rate that is being advertised has $8.8 million for health insurance. So I think it's very reasonable for us to say 1.4 million of that 8.8 should be 7.4, because I think it will be less than that based on this year's actual numbers. I've also been approached by several members of the community, folks in leadership and healthcare, folks who do the competitive bidding, and I agree with you, Mr. Howard. I think that there is a solution, and I do think it's going to take 8 to 10 months to find it. I don't think this is a fiscal year 26 solution. So that's kind of where I stand on the healthcare. I do want to see it addressed. I'd like it to be priority number 1 for us next year for staff. The $4.6 million for capital reserves, I think, is a wonderful idea. But as we sit here today, there are so many things that are variable in the market right now. There's big picture. Is Tallahassee going to say we can't collect property taxes anymore? There's a big one, right? We have annexations as we're rounding out our borders. That's going to impact our collections next year. We have the comp plan coming in and a new code that's going to increase, hopefully, along with our economic development director, our commercial property. So we're going to see significant changes in the next 12 to 24 months. Many of those will be on the revenue side. So what I don't want to do is when we sit here with $16 million that are unclaimed in our reserves account, money that we've collected from the public, and I'm looking at the possibility of another 4 to 8 million coming in over the next 2 years, I don't want to make that problem worse, because the government taxing the people without a plan is a problem. So for me, and the reason why I moved for 4.4 is because if we don't fund the capital reserves right now, which we don't need to do because we have 16 million in reserves and general fund that we can use today. And I do think a lot will change between now and fiscal year 27 budget. We've put a grant writer in there, but we don't have any corresponding requirement for that employee. I think that employee should have, or that position should have a requirement. I think 1.5 is a fair number for that person to go after. Even if we call it 750, it has a significant impact on the budget. And I think the biggest issue is the EMS. So for me, as I sit here today, so I would say on the budget that's on the books right now at 4.59, I would like to see requirements for our grant writer at least 750,000. I would like to remove the 4.6 funding of capital reserves so long as we have upwards of 10 million in our general reserves that has not been allocated, and knowing we've got all these changes that are coming down the road, especially relative to EMS, and to reduce the healthcare from 8.8 to 7.4 based on our actual numbers this year and the approved payroll that we have added to the budget. And I'd like to hear from the city manager on what the status is with the county relative to the EMS, because I think there might be updates that we haven't talked about yet. That's right.
So, Mr. Van Wagner, you're going to comment on the new information we have from this?
Sure. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. I had an agreement that was it's put in front of us. It's preliminary, and Chief Azell, he's actually working with the assistant county manager right now just to flesh out. We had two items of concern in this agreement. One is how far our boundaries would go for transportation, and we're talking for our EMS south of the turnpike. Chief, are you out there with me? And then our second issue we had was they were talking about lowering our ALS payment, and we told them that was not something we wanted to happen. According to our budget, we needed them to continue to do what they're doing. But they have offered at this point to provide an average amount paid per transport of $423.58 per transport. And they are believing that's going to come from the billing revenue side of things. And then they have said, in addition to that, of $141.81 per call from the MSTU funds from the ambulance funds.
Yeah, the biggest concern that I had, Mayor Council, was that the county has a statement in there that if we did not fully incorporate into the county's EMS system, which means that we would be county-wide, that they would not be able to fund us at the level that they mentioned in there. And there was nothing specific as to what that amount would be. I would also like to see a set amount versus getting an amount per transport. I would just like to see a dollar amount for the fiscal year going towards that program so that we know what we're going to be collecting. I think we're pretty close to getting there. I did speak with Assistant County Manager Carpenter earlier today. We're working to get a date set up for us to meet. I gave him times starting as early as tomorrow for us to sit down and hash that out. So as soon as I hear back on a date and a time we can meet, we'll be getting together sometime within the next week to get to a point to where we have something that we can all agree to.
And I know we've received these reports, but do you have off the top of your head how many transports have been done out of Clermont this year, even if it's close, and how many calls have come to EMS?
Yeah, the last data that I had was for the 2024 fiscal year, or calendar year, sorry, and that was around the neighborhood of about 4,000 transports in the Clermont area. So we're not looking at just the city of Clermont, but also those unincorporated areas around us that our ambulances would be responding to.
And the calls for service? So that was transports, but also there would be calls, right?
Well, correct. I mean, total calls for service, we were close to 8,000 last year for fire. That goes across the entire spectrum of what we respond to. Out of that, about half of those was a transport.
So would we be able to go into, say, just our ISBA and just say this is our boundary? Is that?
I think that's a great place to start. We probably need to look at reestablishing what those boundaries are. There's some areas that I think would make sense as far as where we go.
Right.
We've also thrown out to the county that while we do want to have some distance limitations on where we go, but we're also offering that for the high acuity calls, heart attacks, strokes, things that could end up in a life-ending event, we're willing to go wherever we need to go. So we threw that concession out as well. They're really not that frequent compared to the lower acuity calls. And I just don't want to have a situation where somebody dies from a heart attack because we were closer and we didn't go. So I just think that's just part of being a good neighbor. And it's really not going to take us that far out of our coverage area.
But if we're pulling 4,000 calls off of their volume,
Exactly.
I mean, are we really going to get calls for them?
They need the help. Their units are overtaxed right now. A lot of them, they're spending a third or more of their time actively working calls. That doesn't include breaks, downtime for the crews or anything else. And it's where you're getting into what we typically consider a dangerous territory within the industry as far as the active work time for resources. So anything we can do is going to be a help. And I've been looking at what's happened in the county over the last decade. We have grown countywide by about 40%. So we're up 125,000 residents where we were 10 years ago. In Clermont, we're up over 50% in the number of people that are here. We have fewer ambulances on the road today than we had 10 years ago. So it doesn't really take a lot of math to figure out that, we're seeing a situation that's becoming untenable. So we have to add ambulances. And when I say we, I mean, as a whole county system, we need to be looking at additions. So anything we put on the road, in addition to what the county has, it's going to reduce the stress that's on the system, even if we're not going countywide.
How many ambulances are you proposing?
This year, we're proposing 2.
Because to run 4,000 calls, it's $2.4 million. If we're talking about the numbers that they get, 595, so
Yeah.
let's just go 2.3 million just to be safe. So
We would like to get to 4, and that number doesn't
the
come.
numbers that you and I discussed at $500,000 apiece cover that. So I'm going to be happier at that number.
Well, and what is the county collecting in the MSTU? I thought they were
For-
collecting 2.6 million.
I believe the collections projected for this year are 2.8 million.
2.9.
1.1 mils comes back to the city. Now, that was one of the things that they wanted incorporated into the payment for us running transport. The reason that I mentioned the city manager that was not something that we wanted to entertain is because that 0.1 mils pays for the ALS services that's already provided on our fire engines for non-transport services. That program is going to stay in place. We're adding a new program, so we need new funding, not just moving monies from one program that we're doing today over to a new one that we're starting.
Right.
And we've communicated that to the county manager, so she understands that.
Right, is the ultimate goal then, right now, we're going to be under Lake County. The ultimate goal is to become autonomous, but we do our own billing then, to capture, let's say, the 3.6.
Yeah, down the road, I think
To the
that's,
1.8.
a reasonable expectation where we end up. The easy lift for us to get the program up and running is to operate under the county's license. Figure out, we need to understand what we don't know today.
Exactly.
There's going to be things we're going to run into with.
We already have the first one in place now, so we're looking at a second ambulance.
We'll be, with everything being approved, we'll be ordering a second ambulance. We're also looking for the county to provide us an ambulance with equipment. And then, so we would have one ambulance that would be owned by Clermont, one that's owned by the county, and we would be operating out of both of those with our personnel.
Are we going to be receiving reimbursement from the county ambulance?
That's what we're working on. I want to have that agreement in place before we move
I
forward.
was like, wait a minute, we got to be sure that, okay.
So it's the first offer we've had from the county that had a dollar amount attached to it. So I'm optimistic that they're looking to get to a place that we can all agree. I think they understand the need is out there, and there's a push from the public to make something happen. They do have a plan to get additional ambulances on the road within the next year. But from the estimates I've heard from the county, that'll add about 5 or 6 units. If we can put 2 this year and then go for another 2 next year, that'll give us the 10 that we're short. I mean, that's really just to get us back to where we've got our head above water and we can start making some gains. To take us from the 22 that we have today up to the 32 that we would have if we added 10, we're still not where we need to be. But it's a much better position than where we are right now, where the year-to-date average to get an ambulance on scene is over 18 minutes.
And I'd like some clarity. I thought that we have the one ambulance that we bought that was basically, it's been refurbished at this point. It was not a big investment. And then I thought we were adding 2. Is that what you're saying? One would be from the county and one we were
That's
having
what
the
we're
budget?
looking at. We included funding within the transport project that we submitted for one ambulance to be purchased. In the initial meeting with the county, they were willing to provide all the ambulances, all the equipment. So those are the things we're looking at. And this just kind of helps us slowly get into this business. We do want to have our own pieces of equipment that we operate.
So switching back to the budget side, as I'm going to stick on our tentative budget as we have. And what I will give you is that if this comes to fruition and we're able to bring on the additional ambulances, I see no reason why, we're reducing by 0.3 mils this year. I'd like to see 0.3 next year, and I would give you a commitment to work towards that. And that would get us at 429, so at least we have our 2 in there. So I think we can get there, but I'm much more comfortable doing this over a stage where we have some concrete knowledge on what we're doing. So that's where I'm at.
Well, and that's how I feel too about the EMS is the EMS is what's putting us over. So when we look at where we're over our budget and having to draw from reserves, it's EMS. And my concern with that is the long-term commitment to being over the budget. I'm fully on board with using the overage that we have in the general reserves for one-time projects that don't have a long-term commitment to them. So what's really, there's two things I'll say about it is one is if EMS is going to be an ongoing and escalating, exponentially increasing expense, we need to make sure the public is aware of that, because what I see, the way that we're operating right now is we have between 3 and 4 years until our overage on reserves runs out. At that point, we're back to that 5.0 number. If we continue to operate at a 2 million loss this year, that continues to exponentially increase. And that will be worse 10 years from now than it is 5 years from now. So we need to have some sort of game plan for how to pay for the EMS. The flip side of that coin for me is the 6-minute response time. I can't sit here and live with myself if people have a 9 to 15-minute response time in this city. That does not sit well for me. So what I see and why I'm willing to cut the budget or cut the millage is because we have 16 million in reserves. We have basically 2 years until we start getting into our kind of red zone. By year 4 is when we would run out of those 16 million. So I think with the annexations and the commercial development, there's a lot that's going to change in the next 24 months. My personal preference is to give that overage back to the people while we task staff to figure out how we operate lean and mean, with the understanding that we have this threat from the state that property taxes might not be an option for us in 3 to 5 years. So I like the idea of going in a downward direction on the millage and figuring out over the next, revisiting the next 12 months and saying maybe 4.59 is where we need to stay, or maybe we're not quite there. I think a lot's going to change in the next 12 months. But my personal opinion is to give it back to the people, because I don't think we should have increased the way we did. Now we're talking about adding a service, which is a different conversation for me. But I do think that if we kept the millage high, we're falsely suggesting to the public that this is sustainable if we take on EMS. And I just think we just need to get it from the county. I think it's that simple, that if we got the MSTU that the public is paying to the county, we wouldn't be having this conversation about being in a deficit at all. We wouldn't even be in a deficit.
Yeah, and one option that's out there, to Mr. Peterson's point, we're doing this with the light lift going under the county's license. Yeah. There is an option where we could pursue our own license and function as an independent operation. That would require a number of things. We'd have to get permission from the county to be able to get the COPCN so that we could apply for the ALS license with the state. But that would allow us to do our own billing and everything, MSTU, all that would be under our own umbrella. A lot more, it's going to take a lot more time to get that in place. There's a lot of things that will have to happen. But I think it's to everyone's advantage, including the counties, if we're able to come to an agreement to where we do this as a partnership under their license as opposed to us going independent at this point in time.
I agree.
Right, I think what we were talking about is that we're going to initially start under the county, so then we'll be losing that 2 million. But let's say within 3 to 4 years, as we evolve, we'll be going on our own. This is what we're going to be total billing for ourselves. We'll be bringing it up to 3.6 if it's the same 4,000 calls. So then it's going to be a break even.
It's not going to be. See, Chief, I think I heard you say something about we have to incorporate all of the county to get that 4.
That's what the county would like us to do. I'm not in favor of that for a couple of reasons. One, if our citizens are paying to put ambulances on the road, I don't want to come back to council and say that they weren't available because they were up in Umatilla.
Yeah, I guess that's one of my concerns when I heard you say that. In order for them to do us that reimbursement, we have to be willing to go all over the county.
They didn't say they wouldn't reimburse us. They just said it wouldn't be at the same level. So they were not specific as to what that amount was, what the reduction would be. But I think there's room for us to sit down and define a reasonable barrier that's going to give them the relief on the system that they're going to need, and at the same time ensure that we've got resources available for our community.
Well,
We have talked to the county manager, and she told me she thought south of the turnpike would be reasonable and wasn't expecting north of the turnpike for calls.
Is she also expecting, Four Corners?
yes.
That's still discussion.
Yeah.
It hadn't been solidified that, but to your question, Mr. Mayor, she did agree to saying that. It's not in writing yet, but it was a verbal conversation that her and I had.
Well, as I stated in the workshop, I think we're trying to move too fast. So a lot of things need to be worked out here before we start talking about implementing this. Things such as this, how we actually gonna be reimbursed. Like during the workshops, I think I heard for these two ambulances, it's gonna cost us 3.6 million. However, we only paying the county right now 2.6 million. So that right away, we out of $1 million, okay? Just to operate two ambulances that will not provide the service that we're looking for.
Well, keep in
Okay.
mind that the MSTU is only one piece of the revenue
Right.
stream. The other
Right.
piece is with the billing.
That's
So
true.
there is that
Well,
on top of it.
As you said, we're gonna recoup about what, 1 million back from the county.
1/8.
With the building and everything, so that's it. Here's the other thing that scares me about this, and Ms. Strange, you keep saying that we using reserve. Mr. Burrow, how much is in the reserves?
Roughly 16.
16 million, what's the requirement?
The unassigned reserve, about 16 million.
About 16, okay. Well, here's the problem I have with that. You using the reserve to take on new debt, okay? You're willing to spend reserve money. You create new debt. However, you don't have put it this way. You don't have the revenue right now. You're reducing millage, getting rid of more revenue, reducing your income for revenue, but you're taking on more debt because you're using reserve to do it with. When that reserve dollar can only be spent once. Okay, next year, when that dollar is gone, how you gonna pay for it the following year? That scares me. You keep on adding debt when you're using the reserve to pay for it now, when you don't even have the revenue for it right now.
No, I don't
And then
appreciate you
you're still-
mischaracterizing
and
what
you're
I
still
said,
talking about- you're
because
still
I
talking about-
said I am willing to spend that on one-time projects, and I am concerned about the ongoing. What you're not going to do is sit up here and mischaracterize what I said. So I share your concern, Mr. Mayor. I share it, which is why I said I would like to see the revenues increase so that we don't have that debt.
Yeah, and
Does that
yet-
clarify the confusion?
Yeah, we don't want to see revenues increase, but we still talking about reducing the millage. That
Yes.
decreases revenues.
And we can
Okay?
increase the revenues through the service of the EMS. The county is collecting MSTU from the citizens of Clermont, and it's collecting service fees through provision of EMS services. It is my opinion that 100% of that should be coming back to the city, since we will be the ones providing the service, not only to our residents, but we are being asked to also provide that service to the surrounding area. At which point in time, my response would be, then we want the MSTU money for the surrounding area that we are being asked to serve, which I think would be fantastic. I think you could do that. I don't have a problem with that. But what's happening right now is if our citizens are paying $1 to the county is saying, we'll give you back 75 cents. And instead of just being in our city limits, we're being asked to service outside the city. That doesn't work for me. But what I did say about provision of services is we have a 9 to 15 minute response time. And that is a second issue to transport. So
Well,
for
I
me,
don't-
that is second.
Well, transport response time, well, I'm concerned if it's going over 20, 30 minutes.
No, I'm talking about ALS, advanced life support,
And I think
first
I
response.
think we're meeting those type of recalls right now.
No, we're not. We're
Uh,
9 to 15 minutes between Wellness Way and Verde Ridge and the east side of town. That's how this conversation started.
Well, you're right, and of course, that's why we looking to do the fire station down in in Wellness Way, so we can
Yeah.
increase the response time down and get better response time. And then we do understand, understand right now, we have that problem in Wellness Way because of the location of fire station. Chief, I think I heard you say the county has 22 ambulances on call right now?
Yeah, and that does also include some part-time units.
And so what, and here's the other concern I have. my understanding, one of the reasons the county cannot provide as many ambulances they need is because of personnel. So how are we going to be competing with them for personnel? And I know in doing the budget talk, we talked about it's going to take 15 people to set up 15 person to set up ambulance.
Well,
Or
with
at least
permission
two.
from the city manager, we went ahead and started advertising for the 19 positions that we proposed in the budget coming up in October. To date, in the last, I believe we've had it active for about 3 weeks. We've had 90 responses, and 47 candidates have been already forwarded on for interview. That's as of this morning, and I'm constantly seeing new applications coming in. So I think we've got a pretty good applicant pool out there. In addition, we've got a lot of paramedics already on with the fire department. So I don't think we're going to have the staffing challenges that the county has been having. And my understanding is they also have just completed an accelerated program to bring new medics on, and I believe those folks are graduating and should be road ready by the end of the year.
Okay. Any way we can go back and look at all them candidates that have already applied? Any of them actually with the county right now? How many we going to be robbing from the county?
That
And I ask that because if if they decide to come on board with us, we cover Clermont, but then that put the county at bigger risk. So is that going to even put more demand on us to have to help service the rest of the county because they even short?
I understand your point, sir. I honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. I know a lot of them are coming out of the academies, but there very well may be some that are applicants from Lake County Fire.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I guess, because I was around here when we used to do our own ambulance and we got rid of this and I know what the cost was and all the headaches. Other thing, I think I asked you before about dispatch and how would the dispatch be handled? Are we going to have to go back and set up our own dispatch, which is going to include extra funding?
No, we continue with what we're doing today, which we're using the county's dispatch system.
And what's the cost they're going to charge us for that and everything? So, it's a lot of other costs and everything else involved here that I just don't think we've sat down and really worked it through. Thank you, though, Chief. Scott, and the other thing I want, debt services. What's our total debt services?
You're talking about all future totals?
Well, I
Or
know this
just-
year, I think it's a little, but I know I don't think in the budget, we added the debt services for the wastewater treatment. Is that
It is included, yes, sir.
for this year?
Yeah, the first year of payment was in the current fiscal
Okay.
year.
Yeah, what's the total debt services though?
It's actually easier to find online than it is this book.
That's something else because it just scares me. We keep reducing the millage and everything, but you're taking on all this extra debt. Okay, we got the increase in debt services that's going
But
up.
wait, Mr. Mayor, the debt service for that comes out of our water.
I realize
It does
that.
not come out of our general fund. So when we start having that conversation, you're kind of mixing these and they shouldn't be mixed.
For the water, you're right, but there's other debt services in there that I think we're gonna be increasing next year as well, and we still walking back. I think as I said before, I thought we was at a pretty good place at 4.88, but we at 4.59 now, and we can't do anything different right now. What is it, Scott?
So on page 48 of our budget, we do have our annual debt service payments listed out. We have currently 6 in total. And a total, the last of those 6 will be completely paid off in 2024. So the total amount that we have to pay off is $75.5 million.
75 million.
Now, of that, to Councilmember Howard's point, 2 of those are enterprise related. So of that $75.5 million, about $48 million of it is enterprise related.
That's pretty much the 48 million is pretty much had to do with the infrastructure, wastewater, right? Most of
Correct.
that-
Yeah,
most of that,
that's the
right?
biggest one. I mean, that one alone is over $40 million. We just started the repayment of it.
Okay, all right. See, and that's why, that one, you're right, Mr. Howard, that 48 million, it take care of itself, infrastructure funding and everything else, but yet and still, we still got all these other debt and we steady reducing and all. I just don't see it, and I think there's a lot more expensive involved with the CMS services than meets the eye right now.
And I agree, but some of that general fund debt does get retired in 4 years. So 2029, a chunk of that general fund will also get there. And the other part with this is that I get where you're going with that, but we also need to remember that we can increase revenue through annexation of commercial property. And this is one of those things that you learn. The green roofs, why were they not incorporated into the city? And what we find out is
Who
that
was that?
the green roof buildings off of 50. So as we were trying to find out why some buildings were not annexed in, and it was because prior to our ISBA, we couldn't jump. It had to be contiguous. And so now that we have the ISBA, we can jump through as long as it's in our boundary. But what we found is that there is a number of commercial buildings that are within our city. Take Kohl's, for example. I believe that is, Scott, what was that, 80, were they going to save $80,000 a year in taxes by coming on? That was my number. I'm going to go with 80 because I remember that number. But so what we're going to see is we're going to be able to bring these on. We'll bring that tax revenue to the city. We're already servicing those properties anyway, but we should be able to dramatically increase our revenue even though we're decreasing our millage. So, it's being
Tactical.
It's being intentional on what we're doing and finding those things that we didn't know existed. I didn't know that we had hopscotched around or why. I just saw it and was like, why is this? So then you find out and you're like, okay, well now we need to fix that hopscotch.
Let me say it wasn't hopscotched around. Basically, when you sit out here and watch them being approved, basically we had the option of annexing them in during them years they were building all these things. And I thought in the agreement with a lot of them, which I know since I've been the mayor, we went back and annexed a lot of it in, that they had no, when we decided we wanted to annex them in, they had no other choice if we said we're going to annex them in, which we've done. Now, I know Cole's still sitting out there, and I think they're fighting us and everything, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't know about the green top because I thought we had a plan in place that we tried to annex everything along Highway 50 commercial wise, and then we were coming back with the residential at a later time, and we were trying to do all the commercial at one point and then come back and get the residential later, which I know in this subdivision behind Coles, I know they keep telling us no, they don't want to come in. What's that, Spring Valley? They do not want to come in, and we provide them service as well. So I think it's be a little bit tougher on the residents annex in, but I don't think the commercial has any other choice. Okay.
And that's the thing about the commercial though, is that we lose money on residential. I mean, when we go back to the Strong Towns philosophy, that's the one thing that they do get right, is that we do lose revenue going into that. But by focusing on increasing our annexation of that commercial, we're going to increase our revenue. We're going to increase our ability to collect in the general fund, and it's smart. So I appreciate where you're going with the millage, but I also know that we do have intention, and I don't want folks to think that we don't have intention on making up this reduction, because we do, and we're going to be able to. And we've seen double-digit increases, and there's no reason not to expect that we will see it again next year. But it just continues, and this is what we need to be able to do to move forward. So I'm going to make a motion to.
Can I play with you before you do it?
Oh, go ahead.
The four items that I would ask on the budget to be amended are to add grant revenue somewhere between $750,000 and $1.5 million, making that a condition upon the hire of that individual or those individuals, to remove the capital reserves transfer of $4.6 million, to reduce the healthcare from 8.8 to 7.4, and there's nothing I can do with the EMS right now. So those are the three items.
So
Let's talk about it. Yeah,
I'm just not comfortable because those are ifs. The grant revenue is an if. And that's why I said that I'm happy to get there next year to the 429 if the revenue is there and we prove it. And, we just have to find that balance. And I'm not willing to jump off that cliff and say, I know this is going to happen, because I don't. So while I don't disagree with you.
Let me play the devil on this. If we don't put that revenue in the budget and we hire a person and they don't have a requirement tied to their job, then we or folks in the future, I mean, we're going to have to remember that that was what we hoped that person would bring to the city. If we put it in there, the fact is we have extremely healthy reserves right now. So if we put it in there and we find that the grants should have been 750, but they were only 300, it allows us to revisit that entire position next year. So if we don't tie a commitment to that line item, we run the risk of that line item becoming part of the permanent, now you're cutting staff position, instead of saying that's why that position is in there, because we expect that revenue to come. So playing the devil on it, I actually think it's better for us to put it in and not achieve it than not put it in hopes of adding it later.
We can put it in as an expectation of the job. We can do that through the city manager. We don't have to do it through the budget process. So that's my bigger concern, is that I don't want to do this through the budget process. I mean, I don't disagree with you that we should say, this is the revenue we expect. And next year, if that revenue proves true and we're able to do that, then 100%, let's move lower in the millages. I mean, ultimately, we have a goal to get to the 4.2. I just don't think it all has to be done this year, and I don't want to put us in jeopardy of doing that. So,
What about the 4.6? Because once we move that, we can't move it back.
Was that, did I hear a reduction in healthcare?
Yes.
I totally disagree with that, because that's one of the most scariest things in the whole budget for me.
It's a reduction in the increase in healthcare. Again, this year to date, what we have spent is 5.683. The estimated with 2 paychecks left is 6.2 million. If you add 8% more people, which is what we're adding, and you add a 10% increase on that, you're at 7.37 million.
but part of
These aren't made up numbers.
Part of what you're budgeting is staff that is not here right now. So
Sure.
part of the reason that we have that shortfall, we budgeted that amount because we expected fully staffed. We're not fully staffed, so that's why we see that reduction. When we're making this budget, I'm making a budget based on fully staffed. And so what you're asking us to do is to budget based on partial staff, and I don't think that's okay.
Well, and I'll add this to it. $11,000 a year is what 7.4 million is for each one of the individuals, which includes multiple family members. So typically in an insurance policy, you have the employee, and then family members are less for the second, third, and fourth person. But this number, 7.4, would be $11,000 per individual that's on the plan. We have 300 employees, 700 people we're covering. So at 7.4, we're allocating $11,000 a year for every single one of those people, and it's consistent with the numbers we have, and it presumes that every single person that comes on will come on at the same rate as the people that we have right now, which we're talking about hiring a number of young people. They might not have family. I mean, I'm not going to get to 4.2 this year. We're not going to be operating a budget that is in the black, in particularly because we have the EMS conversation. If we approve EMS, we're going to have a red line that is covered by our 16 million. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay because somehow we need to give that 16 million back to the public, whether it's in the form of one-time projects or in the form of some sort of service that we're providing. And that's EMS. Otherwise, without EMS and what we're not getting from the county, this budget actually will be in the black.
Right.
As a normal operating moving forward. EMS is the big thing. And that's where the 16 million in my mind comes in to cover the next 4 years. If we decide to go forward with the EMS, and I want to keep that alive because I do think there's more information. But if we move the 4.6 over to capital reserves, you can't move it back out of capital into general. So we lose that 4th year of potential EMS uncertainty. And we already have 16 million in general reserves that we can rely on if the state says we can't collect property taxes anymore, if. So I think I would prefer to give that 16 million, at least part of it, back to the public and not take 4.6 out of our reserves as we let the next 24 to 36 months go on. That's where I'm coming with the 4.6. You don't want to cut the healthcare. I hear you. I still think it should be a main. Either way, we're going to operate in the red, pulling from that general fund next year. But the 4.6 is going to really make it tight as we're operating in the red. I don't feel comfortable operating in the red and saying we're going to take 25% of it and make it so that we can't touch it. So I think we need to pick between the 4.6 or EMS. And my vote right now would be for EMS, understanding that it helps us reduce that 15-minute response time down to 6 as we go into Wellness Way, Verde Ridge, and Lincoln Park.
Well,
So
I think
that's where
one of
I'm
the
at.
points that, with EMS, the chief had said also there was a loss of life because of the response time.
Yeah.
And what is the number we're going to put on that loss of life?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, we're not going to be the first one to go independent. The villages did it, and they're successful at it now. Once we start doing our own billing, we're going to be on the black on that. Right now, yeah, maybe for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have to be in the red. But I think this is a thing that we need to spend money on. I mean, there's so many things that we want to spend money on. We want to meet in the middle project, we want a garage and things. But this is something that's life and death. This is something that the public wants. This is something that the public needs. So I think we should make a motion to adopt resolution number 2025-25 Romeo.
Second.
What about the capital reserves?
2.5.
I'm not going.
Do you want to keep them in?
For the time being, we can always change that at a later date, but for this adoption,
Yeah.
you still have another bite of the apple in the
2
final.
weeks.
This
It's-
budget is taking 10 million out of the 16 million reserves. The 4.6 puts us at 10 million that we're taking out. Next year, fiscal year 27, based on the projections, we would be done. That gives us no wiggle room, no time at all to pivot if we keep the 4.6 in. Otherwise, that 4.6 creates year number 3 of comfort and certainty.
Did you second that motion?
You have a motion in a second, yeah.
Call for a vote?
I have a motion and a second for the adoption of resolution number 2025-028, tentative budget at the $262,304,819. Is that correct? All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
And the chair vote aye as well. Motion passes 4-1. All right. Any other business that need to come before the council? Any other business that we need to come before the council before I adjourn? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.